Baby, I am so sorry. I am stuck in this meeting. It ran over. Just grab a taxi. He said that to her on the phone while standing in the same airport, in the same building, 20 meters away, wearing the birthday jacket she bought him, waiting to pick up another woman. She watched him do it. She watched him hug this woman, take her luggage, load it into their car, the same car he had driven her to that airport in 2 weeks ago, and drive away. He did not see her standing there with her burgundy suitcase. He did not see her at all. And that, it turned out, was the problem with the entire marriage. But let me go back. Because the moment at the airport is not where this story starts. It is where this story cracks open. Part 1. The Invisible Machine. Nora Whitfield had been married to Grant Whitfield for 7 years. She was the kind of woman who kept a household running so smoothly that the household never knew it was being run. She managed the bills, the insurance renewals, the boiler service schedule, the quarterly pest control, the direct debit for the water softener delivery that arrived every 6 weeks, the annual safety inspection that kept the home insurance valid, the parking arrangement with the neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, a verbal agreement built over 3 years of small courtesies and remembered birthdays. None of these things were dramatic. None of them required visible effort. Nora managed them all in the background the way you maintain a car. Quietly. Consistently. So it keeps running and no one has to think about it. She also managed the finances. The joint savings account. The monthly budget. The subscriptions. She had set up a household management app 18 months ago, linked it to the house email with automatic reminders. Bills, renewal dates, maintenance schedules, everything in one place. A simple system that worked because someone built it and someone maintained it, and that someone was always Nora. Grant did not know the house email password. Grant did not know the app existed. Grant did not know the name of the company that serviced the boiler. He had never once in 7 years thought about the home insurance. It had just been there. Available. Continuous. Like water from a tap. He had not known who turned the tap on. She had also put her career on hold. Grant said it was temporary. Just a year or two, until his consulting firm got off the ground. He needed help with the books, the calls, the scheduling. Nora believed him. She handled everything behind the scenes while Grant stood in front of every camera and handshake. She cooked dinner every night. She pressed his shirts. She waited up for him when he came home late, smelling like bourbon and cologne that was not hers. She never said a word. She showed up. For 7 years. When it was hard and when it was boring and when it was the last thing she wanted to do. She showed up. Grant called all of this suffocating. He told people Nora was controlling. He told people the house felt like a job. He told the woman he was sleeping with that his wife made him feel small. He did not understand that what he was actually describing was friction. The friction of a life being managed around him. The friction of someone keeping the wheels on while he never once looked down to see what the wheels were attached to. Part 2. The airport. Nora had been away for 14 days. A work training course 3 cities away. 14 days of early mornings in a conference center. 14 days of FaceTime calls in the evenings, Grant's face on her screen, his voice telling her about his day, asking about hers. Miss you already. Cannot wait for you to be home. I will be at arrivals at 3. Do not worry. She had trusted all of it. She had no reason not to. She collected her suitcase from the baggage carousel. The burgundy one with the small gold zipper pull she had tied on 3 years ago so she could spot it quickly on the belt. She walked toward the arrivals exit feeling the particular lightness of someone who is almost home. She called Grant when she reached the waiting area. He answered on the 3rd ring. Baby. His voice was warm and slightly rushed. The voice of a man performing calm. I am so sorry. The Henderson meeting ran completely over. I am still at the office. I cannot get out of this right now. I feel terrible. Just take a taxi. It is 20 minutes. I will have dinner ready. I promise. Nora stood still. You promised you would be here, Grant. I know. I know. And I am sorry. This came out of nowhere. Just grab a taxi. Okay, Nora said. She hung up. She stood for a moment with the phone in her hand. The arrivals hall moved around her. Families reuniting. Drivers holding signs. The automatic doors opening and closing with a breath of outside air each time. She began walking toward the taxi rank. And then she stopped. Because across the arrivals hall, moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of a man who had nowhere else to be, was Grant. Her husband. Not at the office. Not in the Henderson meeting. Not stuck anywhere. Here. At the same airport. In the same building where he had just told her 30 seconds ago on the phone that he was too far away to come. Nora did not move. She stood with her burgundy suitcase beside her, and she watched. Grant was walking toward the arrivals gate. He had his hands in his pockets and he was smiling the way Nora had not seen him smile in a long time. Easy and open and unguarded. He was wearing the dark blue jacket she had bought him for his birthday last year. He looked good. He had made an effort. The arrivals gate opened. A woman came through pulling a small silver case. She was around 30 with auburn hair and a red jacket and the particular brightness of someone who has been counting down to this moment. When she saw Grant, her face opened into a wide, delighted smile. He walked toward her. He hugged her. Not a careful hug. A long one. The kind that says I missed you and I am glad you are here and I have been waiting for this. Then he took her silver case from her hand. He said something that made her laugh. She touched his arm. He opened the door of the parking area for her. He put her case in the trunk of his car. The same car Nora had sat in 2 weeks ago when he drove her to the same airport and kissed her goodbye at the departure doors and said, "Be safe and call me when you land." He drove away. Nora stood in the arrivals hall with her burgundy suitcase and watched his car disappear through the exit barrier. The automatic doors opened and closed. A family walked past her laughing. The coffee stand near the exit filled the air with the smell of something warm. She looked at her phone. Grant's name was still on the screen from the call that had ended 2 minutes ago. She put the phone in her bag. She did not cry. She felt something move through her that was not grief and was not anger. It was something colder and cleaner than both. It was the feeling of a picture coming into focus. Of understanding something that had been blurred for a long time and was now suddenly sharp. She walked to the taxi rank. She put her suitcase in the boot of a cab. She got in. She gave her home address. She looked out the window as the taxi pulled away. She was going home. But she was not going home the same way she had left. Part 3. The evidence that was not hidden. The house smelled different when she walked in. Not wrong exactly. Just different. A faint trace of something she could not immediately name. A perfume that was not hers. Floral and sweet and very slightly too much of itself. Nora walked through the living room. Everything looked as it should. The cushions were straight. The coffee table was clear. Grant had made an effort to tidy before she arrived. Or perhaps before someone else had come. She went to the kitchen. On the counter was a mug she did not recognize. Not one of theirs. A white mug with a small blue flower on the side. The kind of mug that someone brings from their own home or buys because they like it. It was clean. It had been washed. But it was not theirs, and it had not been there when Nora left 2 weeks ago. She went upstairs. In the bathroom she found a small travel bottle of conditioner on the shower shelf. A brand Nora did not use. The bottle was almost empty. She was not looking for evidence. She was not in detective mode. She was simply walking through her own home after 2 weeks away and noticing the things that had shifted in her absence. A woman who pays attention always notices when things have shifted. She went back downstairs. She made herself a cup of tea. She sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the white mug with the blue flower. She drank her tea slowly. She thought clearly and carefully the way she always thought. Without panic. Without performance. By the time she heard Grant's key in the front door, she was on her second cup. He came in carrying a takeaway bag. "You are home." He sounded surprised. He covered it quickly with a smile and a hug that was slightly too enthusiastic. "I thought you had only just left the airport. I got your favorite. I was going to have it ready for you." "I took a taxi," Nora said. "Like you suggested." "Right. Right. Of course." He set the bag down. He looked at her. Something in her stillness registered with him. A slight shift in his expression. A recalculation happening behind his eyes. "You okay? You look tired." "I am not tired," Nora said. She looked at him. She looked at the dark blue jacket. The birthday jacket. He was still wearing it. "How was the Henderson meeting?" she asked. "Good. Went well in the end." He was moving around the kitchen getting plates, not looking at her directly. "Sorry again about the pickup. It really did run over." "Which floor is the Henderson account on?" Nora asked. Grant paused. A fraction of a second. Barely visible. But Nora had been married to this man for 7 years, and she had learned the precise length of his genuine pauses, and this one was longer. "Third floor," he said. "Why?" "Just wondering," Nora said. She stood up. She walked to the counter. She picked up the white mug with the blue flower and held it up. "Whose is this?" The kitchen went quiet. The kind of quiet that has weight. "A colleague came by to drop off some files while you were away," Grant said. "She had a coffee." "She brought her own mug to your house to have coffee," Nora said. "She just had it in her bag." "Grant." Her voice was completely even. Not raised, not trembling. Just clear. "I was at the airport today. I called you and you told me you were at the office. I was standing in the arrivals hall when I watched you walk through the same arrivals hall. I watched you hug a woman, take her luggage, drive away with her while I was standing 20 meters behind you with my suitcase. The takeaway bag sat on the counter between them. The food inside was going cold." Grant's face went through several things in a short amount of time. Surprise. Calculation. Something that might have been the beginning of denial before he saw her expression and understood that denial was not going to work here. "You called me baby," she said. "While you were standing in the same building as me. You told me you were stuck at the office and you called me baby and you said you were sorry." He said nothing. "How long?" she said. A pause. The longest one yet. 6 months. The kitchen was very still. Nora set the mug back down on the counter. She straightened it so the blue flower faced forward. She picked up her tea and finished the last of it. She set the cup in the sink. "I am going to call Becca," she said. "She will come and stay with me tonight. I would like you to go and stay somewhere else." "Nora, can we please just talk?" "We will talk. But not tonight. Tonight I need you to go." Part 4. The folder. She gave it 2 weeks. Not because she was uncertain. Because she was thorough. She spent those 2 weeks doing what she always did when she had a significant task in front of her. She researched. She organized. She made a list. And she worked through it from the top. She spoke to a lawyer on day 3. She went through the financial records on day 5. She discovered several things that surprised her in scale, if not in nature. The joint savings account was significantly lower than it should have been based on the last 18 months of their combined income. There were transfers she did not recognize. Amounts that were not large individually, but were consistent and frequent and added up to a pattern that told a story she had not been told. She wrote it all down. She made copies of everything relevant, put them in a folder, and gave the folder to the lawyer. On day 12, Grant came back to the house for a conversation. He was calmer now. He had the energy of a man who had spent 2 weeks preparing a speech. He sat across from her at the kitchen table. "I made a mistake," he said. "A serious one. I know that. I am not trying to excuse it. But 7 years is 7 years, and I think we owe it to each other to try." Nora looked at him across the table. "Tell me one true thing, Grant." He blinked. "What?" "One true thing. Something you have not managed or calculated. Just one true thing." He was quiet. "Because everything you have said to me for the last 6 months has been managed," she said. "The FaceTime calls. The good morning messages. The I miss you. All of it was managed. You were performing the husband while you were somewhere else entirely. And I want to know if you are capable of saying one true thing to me right now without calculating how it lands." He looked at his hands. "I do not know what I want," he said finally. "That," Nora said, "is the most honest thing you have said to me in a long time." She stood up. She went to the counter. She picked up a folder and placed it on the table in front of him. "The lawyer's details are at the front," she said. "The financial summary is behind it. I have noted the transfers I would like explained in the divorce proceedings. I am not trying to make this ugly, Grant. I am trying to make it honest. Which is more than you gave me." She picked up her bag. "I have arranged to stay at Becca's while the process works through. The house is in both our names. The lawyer will handle the rest." She walked to the entrance hall. She picked up the burgundy suitcase. The one she had brought home from the airport. The one she had packed 2 weeks ago with careful, organized hands. She stood at the front door. She turned back once. "I have given 7 years to this marriage, Grant," she said. Her voice was clear and carried the full length of the hallway without effort. "I managed this house. I managed our finances. I covered the gaps you did not know existed because I was filling them before you noticed they were there. I showed up for everything. I showed up when it was hard and when it was boring and when it was the last thing I wanted to do. I showed up." She looked at him. "You could not even show up at the airport." She opened the front door and walked out. The suitcase rolled behind her on the path. The small gold zipper pull caught the afternoon light. Part 5. The other woman moves in. Paige moved in 3 weeks later. She arrived with boxes and energy and a clear vision of what the house was going to look like when she was done with it. She had opinions about the furniture arrangement. She had ideas about the color of the feature wall in the living room. She bought new throw pillows and a large mirror for the entrance hall and a set of copper pots for the kitchen that looked beautiful and were completely wrong for the type of cooking that actually happened in that kitchen. She did not know what type of cooking happened in that kitchen. She did not know what type of anything happened in that house. Because she had never had to keep it running. She found out on the first Monday. Monday was when the household management app sent its weekly summary. Nora had set it up and linked it to the house email. Paige did not know the house email. She did not know the password. She did not know the app existed. What she did know was that on Monday morning, the internet went out. Grant called the provider. The provider said the payment had not processed because the card details had not been updated since the account holder changed. The account holder was Nora. The card was Nora's. The automatic payment that had been running silently for 3 years had simply stopped when Nora's details were removed. "Why was this not in your name?" Paige asked. "Nora managed the accounts," Grant said. "You let your wife manage the accounts." She preferred it. She was better at it. Paige looked at him. What else did she manage? The list, it turned out, was longer than Grant had realized while it was being managed. The insurance renewals. The service schedule for the boiler. The quarterly pest control. The annual safety check that kept their home insurance valid. The neighbor arrangement about the parking space. The direct debit for the water softener salt delivery that came every 6 weeks. When Nora stopped maintaining them, they did not all break at once. They broke in sequence. One every few days. Like lights going out in a house. First one room, then another, until the whole thing was dark. Week 1, the internet. Fixed after 2 days on hold with the provider. Week 2, the boiler service reminder, ignored because neither of them knew what it meant. The boiler was fine for now, but the service lapse would void the warranty. They did not know this. Week 3, the parking arrangement with Mrs. Calloway. Mrs. Calloway had an agreement with Nora. A friendly one, built over 3 years of small courtesies. She did not have that agreement with Paige. The parking dispute that followed was not large, but it was relentless. Week 4, the home insurance renewal letter arrived. The premium had increased. The direct debit details needed to be updated. Grant opened the letter and stared at it. He called the number. He was on hold for 40 minutes. He discovered that because the previous policyholder had closed the payment method without setting up a replacement, the policy had technically lapsed for 11 days. He was now being offered a new policy at a higher rate. He sat at the kitchen table with the letter and the phone and the hold music and thought about how he had never once in 7 years thought about the home insurance. It had just been there. He knew now who had put it there. Part 6. The Unraveling. Paige came into the kitchen on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after moving in and found Grant at the table with a stack of papers and an expression she had not seen on him before. He looked like a man doing a puzzle where the pieces kept multiplying. "What is all this?" she asked. "Bills," Grant said. "Admin things that need sorting." Paige looked at the stack. "Why does it look like this much?" "Because it was being handled before. And now it is not." She poured herself a coffee and sat across from him. She looked at the top sheet. An insurance document. Then a service reminder. Then what appeared to be a printed email chain about a warranty that had been voided. "Nora did all this?" Paige said. "Apparently," Grant said. Paige looked at the stack for a moment. "You did not know?" "I knew she managed things. I did not know the full extent of it." Paige set her coffee down. She looked at him with an expression that was shifting from sympathy to something more careful. More assessing. "Grant," she said. "When you were telling me about your marriage. When you said she was controlling and that she made you feel small and that the house felt suffocating." "Yes." Was the house suffocating? Or was it just that you did not realize how much was being done for you, and it felt like pressure because you did not understand where the pressure was coming from?" Grant looked at the stack of papers. He did not answer. Paige stood up. She went to the window. She looked at the garden. Nora had planted the small herb garden along the left wall. Rosemary and thyme and a mint plant that spread every year and needed cutting back in spring. Nobody had cut it back. It was already spreading beyond its bed. "Who looks after the garden?" Paige asked. "She did," Grant said. Paige was quiet for a moment. "And who is your neighbor?" "The one who keeps leaving notes about the bin placement." "Mrs. Calloway. She and Nora had an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" "I do not know the details. Nora handled it." Paige turned from the window. She looked at Grant at the table with his stack of papers and his voided warranty and his lapsed insurance and his neighbor dispute and his uncut mint plant. She had a thought that she did not say out loud. She turned it over in her mind quietly while she finished her coffee. The thought was this. The man she had believed she was choosing had been held in a specific shape by someone else's daily effort. He had appeared organized because someone organized him. He had appeared reliable because someone was reliable on his behalf. He had appeared like a man whose life was in order because someone spent considerable energy keeping it in order without ever being credited for the keeping. She had not chosen a man. She had chosen the result of another woman's 7 years of work. And without that woman, the result was unraveling at the rate of approximately one crisis per week. Part 7. The Departure. The conversation that ended things happened on a quiet Sunday. Paige was at the kitchen table with a coffee and her laptop. She had found herself in the last 2 weeks doing something she had not expected to do. She had started keeping a list. A running note in her phone of everything that broke or needed doing or had previously been managed that was now not being managed. She looked at the list. It was 3 pages long. She had only been there for 2 months. Grant came into the kitchen. He looked tired. He had looked tired for 3 weeks. The kind of tired that comes from managing things you are not practiced at managing. The boiler service, Paige said. I found the company that used to do it. They have a record of the account. Nora's name is on it. If we want to continue with them, we have to open a new account and they are booked out for 6 weeks. Okay. The home insurance premium is higher because of the lapse. We are paying 40% more per month than Nora was paying. I know. The parking situation with Mrs. Calloway is not going to resolve itself. She told me directly last week that her arrangement was with Nora personally and she does not extend it automatically. I will talk to her. You have been saying that for 3 weeks, Grant. He sat down. He looked at the table. He did not look like the man who had been in the arrivals hall with his hands in his pockets and his easy smile. He looked like a man standing in a room where all the furniture had been removed. And he was only now registering how large and cold the room actually was. I did not know it was this much, he said. I know, Paige said. She just handled it all and I did not think about it. I know. A pause. Paige, Grant said. She looked at him. I am sorry. For the airport. For the way I handled everything. I was not honest with you about the state of things. Paige looked at the list on her phone. 3 pages. 2 months. You told me she was controlling, Paige said. You told me she made you feel like you could not breathe. You told me the house felt like a job. Yes. But she was not controlling, Grant. She was managing. There is a very large difference between those 2 things. Controlling is about power. Managing is about keeping the wheels on. She was keeping the wheels on, and you felt the friction of it without understanding what the friction was for. Grant was quiet. I am not built for this, Paige said. She said it without drama. As a simple observation. Not because I cannot learn it. But because I walked into this thinking I was choosing a life. And the life I was choosing belonged to someone else and was assembled by someone else. And I am now sitting here with a 3-page list of things that are broken and a man who does not know the name of the company that services his boiler. I can learn, Grant said. We can figure it out together. Paige looked at him for a long moment. You said that to me once before. On a Tuesday morning when you thought I was not paying attention yet. You said to Nora on the phone, we will figure it out together. And then you drove away from that airport and left her to figure it out alone. She closed her laptop. She stood up. I am going to pack some things. I will come back for the rest next weekend. I will let you know what time. She walked out of the kitchen. Grant sat at the table alone with his stack of papers and his 3-page list that was not his and his quiet house and the sound of her moving around upstairs. He sat for a long time. He thought about the airport. The arrivals hall. The dark blue jacket and the easy smile and the luggage he had lifted into the boot of his car while his wife stood 20 meters away with her burgundy suitcase watching him drive away. 7 years of bills paid on time and insurance renewed without drama and a boiler that had never once failed because someone booked the service call every October without being asked. He had called all of that suffocating. He understood now what he had actually been calling it. Part 8. The balcony. Nora's apartment was on the second floor of a building with a small balcony that caught the morning light. She had found it within 3 weeks of moving into Becca's spare room. She had approached the apartment search the way she approached everything. Organized. Clear criteria. A list of priorities in order. She found it quickly. She always found things quickly when she was looking clearly. The apartment was smaller than the house. The kitchen was compact. The living room doubled as a workspace in the evenings. There was a balcony just wide enough for 2 chairs and a small table. She had put a plant on the table. A rosemary plant from the garden she had left behind. One she had taken a cutting from before she left. She was growing it in a new pot in new soil and it was doing well. She had gone back to the career project she had put on hold 2 years into the marriage. Not a dramatic return. A quiet one. She had signed up for a certification course. She had started building back the professional network she had let drift. She was good at it. She had always been good at it. She had simply stopped for a while. And now she was starting again. And the restarting felt like putting on a coat she had missed. Becca came by on Saturday mornings. They had coffee on the balcony and talked the way they had talked when they were younger. About everything and nothing. About what was happening and what was coming and what they were going to do next. One Saturday morning, Becca arrived with croissants and sat in the second balcony chair and looked out at the street below. Grant called me, Becca said. I know, Nora said. He said he might. He wanted to know if I was okay. Are you? Becca asked. Nora held her coffee cup with both hands. She looked at the rosemary plant. It had put out new growth this week. Small, bright green shoots at the tips of the branches. I am genuinely okay, Nora said. Not performing okay. Not almost okay. Actually okay. Becca looked at her sister. The certification course going well? Better than I expected. And the rest of it? The house, the divorce, all of it? Nora set her coffee down. She looked at the street, at the morning moving through it. People walking dogs. A child on a bicycle. The ordinary pleasant movement of a Saturday. I stood in that airport with my suitcase, Nora said, and I watched him drive away. And in that moment I thought it was the worst thing that had happened to me. The most humiliating. The most painful. She paused. But it was not. It was the clearest. It was the moment where I could not explain it away or manage it or absorb it. It was just there. Plain and undeniable. In the middle of the arrivals hall with the recycled air and the coffee smell and the automatic doors. She looked at Becca. He did me a favor, Nora said. He just did not know that was what he was doing. Becca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, and Paige? Gone, Nora said. 3 weeks ago. His lawyer mentioned it to mine. He is in the house alone. Becca looked at the rosemary plant. At the new green growth at the tips. How do you feel about that? Nora picked her coffee back up. She thought about it honestly. She looked at the plant. She looked at the street. She looked at the second chair on the balcony and the small table and the morning light coming in from the east. I feel nothing for him that hurts anymore, she said. I feel something closer to clarity. He is going to have to figure out who he is without someone else's scaffolding holding him up. That is not a punishment. That is just the consequence of how he lived. She took a sip of her coffee. I am more interested in what I am building now, she said. The scaffold was holding him up and holding me in place at the same time. I am out from under it. I can see the sky. Becca reached across and touched her sister's hand once. Then she picked up a croissant. Tell me about the certification course, she said. And Nora did. She talked for 20 minutes about the project she was building and the direction she was moving and the things she was learning that she had always wanted to learn. She talked the way she had not talked in 7 years. With her whole self in it. with nothing held back to manage someone else's discomfort. The morning light moved across the balcony. The rosemary plant sat in its pot with its new bright shoots. The street below moved with its ordinary Saturday life. Part 9. The suitcase. The suitcase was in the bedroom wardrobe now. The burgundy one with the small gold zipper pull. She had kept it. She thought about this sometimes. About why she kept it. She kept it because it was the object that held the whole story. She had packed it with her own organized hands and left for 2 weeks and come back to a life she did not recognize. She had stood in the arrivals hall with it beside her and watched her husband drive away with someone else. She had carried it out of her front door at the end. She had arrived at Becca's with it. She had arrived at the apartment with it. It had been with her through all of it. From the leaving to the returning to the leaving again. From the life she had to the life she was building. Some people leave a marriage with nothing. Nora left with her suitcase, her certification, her clarity, and herself. She left with the knowledge that she had shown up for 7 years. That she had done the real work. The invisible daily work that keeps a life running. And that she had done it with care and thoroughness and without being asked. She had not been seen while she was doing it. She was seen now by the only person whose seeing had always mattered most. Herself. Part 10. What this was really about. Grant sat alone in the house on a Wednesday evening. The stack of papers was still on the kitchen table. The mint plant in the garden had spread past the stone border and into the lawn. Mrs. Calloway had left another note about the bins. The boiler had made a sound that morning that he did not recognize. He had Googled it. The results were inconclusive. He sat at the table and looked at the white mug with the blue flower. He had not thrown it away. He did not know why. He picked it up and turned it in his hands. He set it back down. He thought about the arrivals hall. Not the hug. Not Paige coming through the gate. Not the silver suitcase or the red jacket or the laugh. He thought about the phone call. The 30 seconds where he stood in the same building as his wife and told her he was somewhere else. He thought about the word baby. How easily it had come. How naturally the lie had fit inside a word that was supposed to mean something. He thought about Nora standing 20 meters away with her burgundy suitcase. Watching. Not crying. Not screaming. Just watching with the particular stillness of a woman who has just seen the last piece of a puzzle slide into place. He had never once asked himself what Nora saw in that moment. He had only thought about what he was doing and where he was going and who he was going there with. He picked up his phone. He opened the contacts. He looked at Nora's name. He did not call. He set the phone down. He sat in the kitchen of a house that was falling apart in slow motion around him, and he understood something that had taken him 7 years and 2 women and a stack of unopened mail to learn. He had not lost Nora at the airport. He had lost her long before that. In every moment he had looked at the life she built around him and mistaken her labor for his own accomplishment. In every evening he came home to a house that ran perfectly and never once asked how. In every phone call where he said I miss you and meant I miss what you do for me. The house was quiet. The boiler made its unfamiliar sound again from somewhere in the walls. The mint plant pushed further into the lawn in the dark. And 20 minutes across town, on a second-floor balcony, a rosemary cutting was putting out new growth in a pot that belonged to no one but the woman who planted it. There is something most people never learn until it is too late. We confuse the person who manages things with the thing that needs managing. We see the house running and we think the house runs. We see the finances stable and we think the finances are stable. We see the life looking ordered and we think the life is ordered. We do not see the hands that are ordering it. We do not see the hours and the attention and the daily invisible labor that produces the order we are benefiting from without knowing we are benefiting from it. Grant did not know what he had. Not because he was stupid. Because he never had to know. And the luxury of not having to know was something Nora's work had paid for every single day. When she stopped paying, the bill arrived. Paige did not steal a life. She walked into a vacancy left by a departure and discovered that the vacancy was not an opening. It was a responsibility. And the responsibility was larger and more detailed than anything she had been shown. She left, not because she was weak, but because she was honest. And Nora? Nora is on a balcony with a rosemary plant and a certification course and a sister who comes on Saturdays and a suitcase that has been everywhere with her and a life that is finally, entirely, undeniably her own. She did not need revenge. She needed room. And the airport, the place where it all cracked open, turned out to be exactly where the room began. Sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is simply stop. Stop managing. Stop absorbing. Stop filling the gaps before anyone notices they are there. And let the people who never saw the work finally feel the weight of its absence. That is not revenge. That is just the truth, arriving on time, the way she always made sure everything else did. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment.